Hey everybody, Mark here with Trophy Trail Outdoors. Guys, I wanted to go over feed today because I feel like there is a common misconception on what needs to be fed and what doesn't need to be fed and how it actually works. Okay, so a white-tailed deer needs to eat as much protein as possible. He needs to eat, you get the corn, you get soybeans, anything that, will increase the body temperature and increase blood flow, and help that deer, like going through the winter time. They need fat, okay? The protein, the corn, the soybean, they're gonna eat that stuff. It helps their body. So whenever you go into the spring or you finish going through the fall, and what a lot of people don't know is as soon as the antlers fall off, their horns start to grow again. I mean, it may be very little, but as soon as a deer loses his horns, they will heal up, the caps will heal up on top of his head, and they'll start pushing horn immediately. Okay, so on those warmer days, in the winter even, they will push a little bit. You'll see a little bit of brown up there pushing through. Okay, if they don't have anything to eat that time of year, then how do you think they're going to start off that year with pushing horn? Okay, if they're pushing bone that early and you're looking outside and you see nothing to eat, or well, deer season's over, so now I'm done feeding corn, or I'm done feeding this and that, all you're doing is you are starving the white-tailed deer. If you have been feeding, basically the whole deer season, and then you stop mid-February, mid-January, and that deer's on your property, 10 bucks says that deer has no clue where to go at first to find food. Okay, all they're just going to do is get up and wander off. Another thing, so if a deer gets up and wanders off, he finds a new food source. What's to say they don't stay there? Okay, so that's the big thing, is we want the deer to stay on the property. So if you are feeding those deer and you notice, okay, the horns fell off, it's January, we're going to keep feeding. All right, well, what do we feed? Feed the same thing that you fed earlier that year. Just keep feeding, keep pushing the food, okay? Because that protein, all that stuff, it's going to help that deer. It's going to provide the body that they need to push max antler, okay? You don't need some huge, big, new mineral that they have out there. Yes, they need a good mineral, but that's not all of it, okay? Mineral doesn't put body fat on a whitetail. So when you're talking about, going out and growing the biggest whitetail, it doesn't start with mineral. Mineral's part of it, but it doesn't start with that, okay? They got to have their body fat up so that they can even begin to push bone, okay? If a deer is skinny and he has to wait till stuff starts growing in March and April, and then he finally starts getting stuff that produces a little bit of protein, puts some fat on his body, he's 2 months behind, okay? He's starting to push as soon as those antlers fall on the ground. And as soon as those antlers fall on the ground, he needs food. Okay, that's all there is to it. He needs food. So as soon as those antlers fall off, we've come to the conclusion that you need food, right? But what a lot of people don't understand is, and in the deer farming industry, we don't just want them eating grass, okay? If you want a 200-inch buck like all these guys talk about all the time, I can promise you they have feeders every single, you go out 100 feet, there's probably a new feeder, okay? They're keeping the stress down because the whitetail, they don't have to walk very far from feeder to feeder, even their wild ones, okay? I don't agree with, juries and all these people. They all, they all kiss ass to the conservation department, and it's sick. It really is. It's nasty because these guys are, they're some of our biggest, heroes growing up in the hunting industry, and the Department of Conservation's killing hunting, and those guys are right up there with them. But I guarantee that they feed, okay? They're feeding like nobody's business. Yeah, they put out a few food plots, but you see all the deer that are in those food plots, I can promise you, those food plots, they'll have those things eaten down to nothing, okay? And with the droughts we have, okay, you have to supplemental feed. Now, do I agree with the Conservation Department? No, I don't. I'm 100% against the Conservation Department. I think if you want to grow a massive buck, you have to supplemental feed, okay? Because just regular fescue is not producing 200-inch deer. It's just not doing that. So throughout the year, and then that's when minerals come in. So once they start producing that body fat that they need that mineral also. So yes, you're going to need to put the mineral in there, but it's not just mineral, okay? They need other things. But when you're going through the season and everything, you cannot stop supplemental feeding if you want to grow a massive buck, okay? There is, especially mid-Missouri, I don't have any crops anywhere around us, okay? So the only way I'm going to grow a massive deer is if I put a feeder out in front of my house less than 100 feet, because that's the conservation's rules, okay? It's got to be within 100 feet of your house, some bullshit like that. So that's basically what I would have to do if I wanted to grow a deer like that. But just because you see these deer from deer farms and you think, oh my gosh, they're feeding them all this stuff. No, guys, they're not. They're getting the feed to them, okay? There's not a break in when the deer eat. These deer are eating the same feed year round. They don't have to fight for their food, okay? So when you see a deer out in the wild and you're like, oh my gosh, last year he was a 140-inch buck. I bet he'll be, 160 this year, okay? All that depends on his food. There's a lot more to it in wild deer than what there is in pen raised deer, okay? In pen raised deer, I could see a deer out here, a yearling like the one I just showed you in the last videos, that 160, 170 inch yearling could turn into a 300-inch yearling, or a 300-inch 2-year-old, I'm sorry. And that's all because of feed and stress, okay? So we got to keep the feed to them and keep the stress down. And that's what these big farms are doing. That's what these big hunters are doing on their big farms, is they're putting feeders out. They don't have to follow the same rules, guys. The same rules don't apply to them. But if you're wanting to know exactly, what kind of feed that they are feeding, I plan on breaking that down here pretty soon. We'll go through that, and you guys will be able to see. But I want everybody to know before we break it down in the next couple videos that this feed is like $20 a 50-pound bag, okay? It is not free to grow deer like that. But if you're just those guys that just want to hunt over some food and just kill a buck, there you go. You go do that. You go to Orscheln's, go to Baumgartner's, get your stuff and be done. If you're actually wanting to grow a big deer, I would honestly say just get you some feed, some regular feed from the feed store, and we can tell you what things to add to it and stuff. But the biggest thing is they got to have it year round. It's year round, okay? And so going also with that, the stems. How many stems do you have on your property? We believe that, on all these fence rows, all we got to do is just plant. Like, we got the red twig dogwoods. I've heard so many people say, oh, we've planted hundreds of them, they all just die out. Okay, it's because most of the time they think that it's okay to just grab a red twig dogwood, stick it in the ground, it's going to root, everything's going to be fine. Okay, if you're spending money or you're buying this stuff, let it root in pots, okay? Be able to water it, okay? And then in the fall when it's dormant, plant it, and it will survive. But it's got to have a root ball on it to survive the heat of summer, okay? So don't just do what a lot of these guys do and just grab red twig dogwoods and just go shove them out in the dirt and in these wet, swampy areas thinking they're going to live. You may get a few. I'm not saying you won't get a few, but I'm just saying it's not worth your time and the investment that you're making. You're just blowing the money, okay? So if you have any questions on what to plant or what we have at our nursery that we can help you, you don't have to buy from us. We're not trying to sell everybody everything. If you want to buy them, we'll gladly sell them to you. But if you're wanting to know how to propagate this stuff on your own so that you do not have to spend, thousands of dollars like everybody else, and, this serves as a food plot. The more you plant, the more they have to eat. And a red twig dogwood gets huge, okay? They get so massive, and they just keep spreading and spreading, and you can keep breaking them apart and planting more. You can literally just take a cutting off of a red twig dogwood and put it in sand just like everything else, and it'll root. And it's crazy. People do not have to spend this much on their food plots and deer hunting.